What's up, everybody? This is B the Installer. Looks like I'm a couple seconds early, but that's okay. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm here because I'm going to be going over kind of a second version of the buy or wait, buy a TV or wait type video. I wanted to make a video after some of these TVs have come out, similar to the one that I made in January, where I was speaking about, the TVs of 2020 versus the TVs of 2021. And if you guys want to let me know in the comments if you can hear me and if everything sounds normal, that'd be great too. So I'm going to pull up. Let's just see here. Give me a second. How's everybody doing today? So far, the comments seem kind of quiet. All right. So I have a slideshow I'm going to be showing, which is some of the comparisons of the C1 and the C10. And I also have the A90J as well. So I'll be able to show you the three different TVs and see if you guys think that, you're making the right choice by buying one or the other, or if you think that, you need to wait for a new model and so on. So we're going to go over all that. So all right, cool. Just double checking I was good. I hadn't seen any comments for a minute, so I just wanted to make sure I was not on, because this is the first time I've done this. So here, let me grab the slides up here and check it out. And I'm going to share. Let's share this up. All right. All right, so there we go. So buy or wait, when and what to buy. I'm going to do a quick overview of like where we are. I have comparisons, like I said, of the C10 versus the C1. And I'm going to show you slides of the C10, C1, and A90J. I have three 65-inch TVs that I'm doing a video on. And I want to see if you guys can pick out which TV is which. And then I'm going to talk about the A90J G1 comparison, the value, Q90T, QN90A, and then QLED versus OLED. And questions, I'm trying to get through this rather quickly. I have an hour. My kids are coming home. I got a plumber coming. So I'm not doing a 2-hour chat here. So if you guys want a question answered, I will stop and try to answer questions. If you do like a super chat or something, whatever, makes it easy for me to see on the screen. So let me get this, make it a little bigger. Cool. So first, where are we in the buying season? So obviously there's been some TVs that have come out. A lot of people are making the decisions on buying last year's TVs or waiting for this year's TVs or paying the premium for this year. And I think, for the most part, it seems like there hasn't been any like crazy new TVs that people are saying, I got to have that one. For the most part, right now is a great time in the spring to buy a TV from last year, as long as it's not a TV that had limitations like, the Sony TVs that didn't have HDMI 2.1, or, if you're looking at something like a Q90T versus a QN90A, there's some, black level detail differences that people are talking about. And so maybe that's a reason to wait for the better TV, or to buy the better TV, pay the premium. And everyone knows, I think everyone on this knows that, you're not going to get any huge discounts on these TVs until most likely the summer, Amazon Day, or, toward Black Friday. Last year, it was a couple weeks before Black Friday. All kinds of good prices were out. There was a time where like these OLEDs were on great sales, that those prices still haven't come back since before Black Friday. The A8H is still not as low as it was then. So, probably some people are going to wait for that. But for the most part, people that are on here and probably listening to this want to know if there's an improvement on like the C1 versus C10, if there's a reason to, get the A90J or A80J versus the 8H from Sony. And then, again, with the Samsungs and others. So thanks, Chana, Techno Dad, hooking it up. I love it. No question though. So I'll just keep going then. All right. So, we're in the part of the season where you're buying old TVs or you're paying a premium. That's just plain and simple. A lot of my customers are excited to get the brand new TV, or, I get a lot of calls. People are still buying the C10. They'll be buying the C10 half this year. So that's pretty normal. So first, I did a video on the C1 where I found that the C1 in itself looked great. I like the TV. I didn't see significant differences over the C10 necessarily, but minor improvements on a great product is still a positive, right? I mean, that's what happens with iPhones. That's what happens with all kinds of products. You know, we'll buy one better because it's a year newer. Maybe it's got better firmware updates. You know, it's got some other different benefits. In this instance, the C1 has a bit of a cooler remote. You know, it's not quite as, you know, hiccupy. I like the new remote. It's not a reason to, you know, pay $500 for a new TV. Also, the game optimizer, kind of cool in-game abilities to make different changes that you can do in gaming. A little better shadow detail, a little better upscaling. So let me go into showing you guys. I'm sure you're interested to see some of these slides. I want to play a little game. I want you guys. What's up, everybody? I'm sorry if I'm not getting the comments. You know, hey, how's it going? I'm excited to have everyone here. But I want to show you guys some of these slides and see if you guys can pick out which TVs first. And I made them hardest to easiest. So, oops, that's not the right button. Yeah, we're going to get back to this. So it's going to be kind of interesting for me to do this. There we go. All right. So here's the first slide. So I have 3 TVs. I have an A90J up. I have a C10 and a C1. And I want to see if people in the comments can tell me which TV is which. And I'm going to go through a few of these and give you what I think I can see in these different slides. This is SDR cable. This is just cable TV. It's a movie. I don't know what movie it is. So this is 1080p SDR. And I have the A90J, a C10, and a C1. And I'm going to move Mr. Techno Dad's comments so we can actually see the other one. There we go. Sorry, Chana. All right, but you guys should definitely subscribe to Chana's to his channel, Techno Dad. He's almost at 100,000. He's going to give $1 million away to whoever's the 100,000th. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, all right. So we got 3 different TVs up there. From what it looks like to me, they look very similar. So if I was someone that got the A90J and I couldn't tell the difference, this might concern me. Although most people have said the SDR on the A90J is relatively similar to the other TVs, or possibly even less bright than the previous OLEDs. It's a calibration situation. You know, not super technical on this stuff, but I was surprised to see that all 3 of the TVs look fairly similar. So I'm going to move on and I'm going to go over a few of these and then we'll talk about it. So this is Men in Black. It's a screenshot from that movie. And in this one, I could start to see some detail differences. So I don't know what you guys think. Check it out. Be interested to see in the comments. I see some people are already making guesses. But again, I want to tell you, it's the C1, the C10, and the A90J. There is no G1 in this, just FYI. But I'll go over some more information on that. So in this one, I'm looking at detail, shadow detail under Tommy Lee Jones' neck there a little bit, behind Will Smith or Will Smith's suit, even in Tommy Lee Jones' suit. You guys see a noticeable difference in the detail. There's a little bit of detail difference, not a huge deal. But let me go ahead and move on to the next one. Now this one's interesting. Again, you can see some shadow detail difference. Again, brightness looks about the same. I was going to try to do motion and try to do some video, but I figured it would probably look like crap. So I just decided you have to wait on Saturday for my video to see these in motion and then kind of pick out what is what. I'll probably tell you in that video what's what. And you're going to know in a second here. But you can see in the faces of the people in the cars, there's definitely shadow detail difference. So this is an example where I wanted to pause it right at the spot because you could clearly see that it was easier to see the faces of the people in the truck in one of them. A couple, you know, it's kind of hit or miss, but this is another SDR picture. So let me go back. I'm going to fire through these. So here's basketball. If you guys know this is a basketball game, I'm just joking. What do we got? The Hornets versus the Lakers, I think. So, you know, it's not very exciting because LeBron's not out there, nor is AD. So we got basically Kyle Kuzma playing basketball for the Lakers. But if you look at the detail, these are pretty similar shots. I couldn't notice a whole lot of difference in these. I think more is just the tone maybe. a little bit different color. But yeah, SDR, it's definitely difficult, isn't it? I see a couple of people saying that. I'm gonna look back through the comments when we get closer and figure out, or you guys can tell me who was right. So one more, let's see. All right, so here is a movie. Now we are in HDR, and I'm gonna tell you though, in the HDR, I had to handicap the A90J. So I had to handicap the A90J for now, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like when it's not handicapped in a second. But I wanted you to just see what they look like when I got them as close to the same as possible for these three TVs. And again, the C10 and the C1 are the exact same settings across the board. They're all in, it's Cinema or Cinema Home. I can't remember which one it is now. I should know that. All the details are the same, colors the same, motions the same. It was all, turned off basically all of the noise reduction, and it was just the processing of the movie, Dolby Vision movie. All right, so again, very similar. And then let's go back. Oops, I was already on it. There we go. All right, now this one, I start to feel like you can start to differentiate a little bit, even though, again, the A90J is handicapped. It's getting a little closer. I'm going to keep moving. There's a little, there's some shadow detail, and I'm going to point that out in a second. And then here's one that is definitely one that I've used before in videos to kind of see. This is where Hulk's about to jump over, the Bleecker Street, from Doctor Strange here, where he meets the Sorcerer Supreme or whatever. And right when he's about to do that, I've seen when I watch this in different TVs, you can see a lot of different shadow details. So you can see in the top right and the top left, and then look in the bottom. The bottom left has more detail than the other two. That's what I noticed in this slide. And then here is a slide that I have been saying I've used in others, which is, fat, sad Hulk and his beard and his shirt. And I noticed that in this one, it looked to me like the top left had kind of the most detail as far as like how it was. It's very like resolute. You can see it quite well, but I think that the left two kind of have a little more detail. All right. And then let me go one more. Okay. This is, I think, the last one. Yeah, this is the last one. Okay. I wanted to make sure I didn't screw up. So this is the last one. Again, on this one, it's interesting. They all look the same. And then all of a sudden this top left looked a little brighter in this one. So, so now I'm going to show you the next one, and it might become evident what is what. So let's just see if you guys can react. So here is when they're all maxed out and then exposed to the brightest film, the brightest TV. So let's see. Yeah, sad Thor. I felt bad saying fat Thor. I don't know. Sad Thor sounded better, but now I've said it. All right. So what do we have here? Let's see. Top left C1, right C, bottom. All right. So James is on point there. I think it becomes evident when you see this. You can just see that on the bottom left, there's just a ton more detail. And that's because the TV is brighter. And that's the A90J down on the bottom left. So the bottom left is the A90J. The top left is the C1. The top right is the C10. And I'm going to show you another slide here. Here's another situation. So the whole point of doing this is that I kind of feel like there's something for everyone in this. I think for those of you who are debating whether you should get the C1 or the C10, can you see much of a difference between the top two pictures? It's pretty difficult. The C1's a little bit brighter, has a little bit more shadow detail, but not by much. But that's not to say it's not a good TV. They're both good TVs. The C10 was fantastic last year. The C1 is fantastic this year. Okay. But when I wanted to show this with the A90J, it's very hard to tell people why the A90J is just automatically better, even though it doesn't measure more bright. It doesn't measure an extreme amount of brightness higher so far. It doesn't have a higher peak brightness, sorry, than the other TVs. And I was quite surprised that the C1 and the C10 were as close as they were, because the A8H was not. But in this instance, this is kind of what happens when you watch on the A90J versus a C10 or a C1. This is the experience that I have. When you're watching it, the highlights are a little bit brighter and you see more detail. And I think that's what you're paying for when you're getting something like the A90J. Let's go one more slide. Here's another example of where it becomes very evident, to me at least. I don't feel that the bottom picture is overexposed. Sometimes it's hard to do this when you're having 3 different TVs of, they're all slightly different in brightness, that you may overexpose the top, you may overexpose the brightest picture. And then people say, well, that just looks blown out, so I don't like it. Well, in the reality, the A90, all 3 of these TVs would look fine if you just had them separate, right? But when you see it like this, you can see how much brighter that A90J is on the bottom. Yeah, it's like I'm coughing a lot. And then on the top 2, you got very similar pictures, but you can see in this one that the C1 is quite good, and it's a little bit better than the C10. And the C10 is calibrated, and I think that they were very close. I think if I got the C1 calibrated, which it is not calibrated, I will be getting it calibrated shortly. I think it's going to maybe be a little bit better even. So what do you guys think so far? Is anyone regretting their purchase? Let's see. Thanks for the super sticker. I didn't know it was Ray. I appreciate it. Let me go on to the next one. Here is an end scene, when Captain America takes the hammer. This is not quite as I had it a little too dark here in general, so all of them kind of look a little dark. But again, you can see on the side of Captain America's face, on the side of the hammer, in the background, it's a little brighter. And again, there's more detail. And in both of the other ones, it's less bright. And then lastly, I wanted to show one more slide, which is, this is the Apple TV screensaver. And this is another example. I have used the Apple TV on all these TVs, right? And I've used it on the C10 for a very long time, and I have an A8H, and I've used it for a very long time on that. And this is what I see on the top here is what I see in reality. It's hard to see the buildings, even if you put it at, highest peak brightness. No matter what you do, it's still difficult to see a lot of the detail in those buildings. Well, what got me, so happy about the A90J is that you can see so much detail down below. And that's what happens when you have this brighter OLED. No, it's not a QLED bright. It's not as QLED, it's bright as a QLED, but when you have it in a dark room and you see all that extra detail, that's what you're paying for. So is it twice the price? I don't know. That's something we'll have to talk about. So I think that's all the slides that I have. Let's check. It is. All right. So I hope you guys like those slides. I'm going to have more of these slides on in my video coming up on this weekend. But the A90J is solid. I'm pretty impressed with the C1, to be honest. So I'm interested to see what you guys think in the comments. But as far as the C1 versus C10, now that I've seen them compared against each other, I would have to say that right now, I would probably go to buy the C10 because you're saving like $500 on a 65-inch. So there was very little difference in the 2 TVs. I thought that the C1 looked great, and I said that in my review. I said I like the C1. I think it's great. I hadn't compared it I hadn't really compared it to the C10 necessarily, but now that I have, I think that they're both great. I think that you could be happy with either one of them. So as the year goes on and the C10 is no longer available, I think the C1 will be a great TV at a very similar price. Okay. But I also think that, the C10 is a great purchase right now. So I'm interested to see some of the comments. The A90J, I will say, I see a couple comments. The A90J needs to be calibrated too. It did look a little green to me. It does look a little off-putting. It doesn't look quite as accurate as the C10, which is the more accurate TV of all of these because it's been calibrated. So I will let you know how that goes when I get it calibrated and see if we get a little better color, because I had seen that on ratings.com that they had theirs it's not perfect pre-calibration, post-calibration. It was one of the best, it was like a 9.7 on their reference of how good it was calibrated after the fact. So the A90J, I think there's a little bit for everyone. A90J, great TV, love it. Very expensive. After seeing it up against the C1, it definitely makes me wonder if it's really worth, again, it's at least 70% more expensive. And again, I saw some comments as well. It does get warm. I'm definitely not thrilled that it gets so hot. I don't play, the YouTube videos where you're like just full screen, super bright HDR all the time. When I'm watching a movie, or if it's in a cooler condition, the screen doesn't get as hot. But I would wonder, in a warm environment in the summer, playing stuff all day long, is that A90J going to be, too hot? Is it going to cause burn-in? It'll be interesting. I don't know much about the heat sink and how much work that's doing, but from my experience, I haven't had a TV that has been that warm on the screen to date, ever really. So interested on your thoughts as well on that. So, so I got the comparison. So the A90J versus the G1. Man, the A90J versus the G1 is a really tough comparison. I haven't gotten the G1 yet, but it is very similar to the C1, except it's slightly brighter. So if people are happy with the C1, and then they're going to get a 10 or 20% increase in brightness, and it's only $300 more for a 65-inch TV, I would have to say it's going to be very hard for gamers specifically to say that the G1 isn't a better value for the money. Now, is it better than the A90J? That's probably going to be mostly who owns each of the TVs. I have the A90J. I like it, but I don't like it enough that I wouldn't buy another TV if it was a better value. So I'm interested to get the G1. I got a notification, I don't know, it was a few days ago, on LG's website that the G1 went on sale. It was like 9 p.m. Pacific. And I went on and I started getting it ready to go. And by 9:30, sold out. So it sold out in a half an hour. I don't know if anyone else caught that. But did anyone else get a G1 or get notified that they were available on LG's website for a short period of time? Because I actually stopped and went and got the Theragun to give my wife a back massage, and I missed out on my TV. So it's her fault. I'm mad. No, I'm just kidding. It's all good. I'm sure it'll be back on sale soon and I'll get one. But very difficult. I think the G1 with the gaming features, I like the wall. I mean, one of the greatest things about that is how cool it looks on the wall. I think most people here are going to say it's more about the gaming features for LG, a beautiful picture, all those things. But I also I'm very interested to get it because of how flat it goes on the wall. It has its mount that recesses inside the TV. And I'll do an install video on that. So if you want to check that out, but I really think it's going to be a cool TV. And I won't hesitate, to find somewhere else to put the A90J if the G1 is right there with it. But, right now it would be $4,000 versus $2,600 or $2,800. And I saw it on LG's website. It said $3,000. So I don't know if they're kind of moving the prices around, but I was on a stream with FOMO where he had the price listed at $2,800, and I saw on the LG's website it's $3,000. So maybe they're moving the prices around a bit, but we'll figure it out. I know there's a couple of people on here that like the A90J, right? So New Master 69 doesn't like the MCU movies, even though his name is the same, but he does like the A90J. So that's awesome. All right. So Q90T versus QN90A. I don't have comparisons on here. I have had both TVs. Initially, I did not love the QN90A as much as maybe some of the other people are reviewing them do like them. I got to go live with my wife. That'd be funny. She'd laugh. She'd laugh. She knows it was her fault. She actually knew. She's like, you said you were going to get it right away. And I said, I got to get you the Theragun. So anyways, it's her fault. So the QN90A, I like the TV. I like that it has very good black level. But the problem is that the black level was knocking down all the highlights when I was watching content. So I was watching a dark movie, the movie Bright on Netflix, just randomly put it on. It had very little detail because it was knocking down all the highlights. Then I put it up against the A90J. I had them on the same scene, and all of the highlights on all of like the little lights in the background on the A90J were much brighter, and I could barely see any of the content on the QN90A. When you have it like on something beautiful and bright, or if you're gaming on a bright, TV or on a bright scene, awesome. If the game is bright, if you're going to watch bright movies, or if you're going to be in a bright room, the QN90A is great. The Q90T, I had similar, last year I had similar complaints, and I liked the Q90T for similar reasons. So without another TV there to compare it directly against, I had said in my QN90A review, it's bright, the dimming is pretty aggressive, there is still dirty screen effect, and therefore I like it. It's got the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I still think that holds true. I think that a lot of people have proven with, you know, by measuring the brightness and all that, that it is better than the Q90T, and it has, you know, what, 10 times the dimming zones. So I'm not going to say it's not better than the Q90T. I think this one's a little bit easier. Most people are going to go with the QN90A because the Q90T only had like 100, 120 dimming zones, and it had, you know, worse black level, all that kind of stuff. So if you can get the Q90T for a discount, I still recommend people do that. If they, for the most part, I think a lot of people are nitpicking these issues, including myself. For the most part, people will really like, you know, the Q90T, the C10, Sony A8H if they don't game, you know. Otherwise, for the Sony A8H, it's almost like you're only going to buy that if you don't game, because this year there's 2 OLEDs that you can buy if you do game that have HDMI 2.1 in 2 ports anyways. So, you know, that one's a little bit harder for me to recommend because I think the Q90T could be bought no problem if it's on a discount. It's not discounted like that much anyways, but the QN90A, I think it is still, what was it? It was 2000, or was it? Yeah, 2000 for the 55 inch. And I think it's like $2,600 for a 65 inch. So pretty expensive. For the most part, I'm still more of a fan of OLED TVs for that high price point. You know, control the light in your room. I see no reason not to buy the OLED. I'm not concerned about the burn-in. With the A90J, I did get the warranty because, you know, I knew that it got hotter because I reviewed a 55 inch and then upgraded to a 65 inch. But that, you know, that will, you know, that's your choice. If you get a TV, get a warranty, get a Q90T and a warranty, or get a, you know, a OLED with a warranty versus a new TV. That's another question you could have. You know, I think for many people, buying a C10, for example, with a warranty would be a better deal right now than going out and buying the C1. Because if you buy a C10 with a warranty, you're getting all the gaming features still. You don't get the optimizer, the remote's maybe not quite as good, but you have 5 years of no worries, right? Or if you buy a C1 without the warranty, are you going to be concerned not just about, you know, not just about the burn-in that could possibly happen, even though I'm not worried about it, but, you know, I've seen dead pixels before in various TVs. I've seen TVs just go out 3 years down the road. So, you know, there's reasons to buy those warranties. If it's $100 a year for a warranty, what's the big deal? I would buy it specifically for a longer period than a shorter period. So some people are like, should I get the 2-year or the 5-year warranty? In my opinion, it's a no-brainer. Always get the long one, because if something's going to happen, it's going to happen in year 3, 4, or 5, not year 1 or 2. And for the most part, some of these TVs have, you know, manufacturer warranties that go up for a couple of years anyways. All right. So let's see. I'm flying through comments here. Oh, I got a question here. Let's just see what happened. Is LG going to use the Evo panel? So in all series. So there was mixed communication about this. I guess some people had commented that there were people saying that the C1 did have the new Evo panel, but I don't think that's the case. I think Vincent Teo of HD TV Test said it is not. From my understanding, it wasn't the new Evo panel. And again, I think Evo panel means something that LG has deemed it. I believe that the Sony A90J and the G1 from LG have the same panel, and then LG is calling theirs the Evo panel, and I think that's more of a marketing term. I may be proven wrong on that, but for the most part, I think both of those TVs are the new panel, and LG just calls it the Evo panel, and Sony is using a heat sink to increase the brightness. But again, I could be wrong. I know there's a lot of information about that. So thank you for the question. I hope. Definitely not on the C1. It sounds like it's not on the C1 though. And I don't see it. I don't see any major brightness improvement on the C1. I think some people have measured it to be slightly brighter. But when I was looking at the two TVs, I saw very little difference in them as far as brightness. If anything, I would say the C1 looks a little bit more like it's upscaling in the way that Sony has in the past, where it is averaging out the edges of things versus, you know, the LG typically is trying to exact everything. And therefore you get more digital noise, you get more, you know, rough edges, but from 6 to 10 feet away, very difficult to tell the difference. The motion, I think, was very similar. On all the, and I'm going to show you guys in the video this weekend, you know, you can set the motion to be, you know, not so bad on stuttering without having the soap opera effect. I mean, you can do it however you want, but just because you add a little bit of motion does not mean it's going to look like a soap opera. That's a lot different than it used to be 10 years ago. And I know a lot of people are very strongly opinionated about that, but I used to install TVs like a long time ago. And when those, like the Samsung A650 came out, that thing was like if you put that on, you would literally get seasick while you're watching it. And that just doesn't, even if you put it on full soap opera effect, all the way, true motion, all the way on, it's kind of like that, but not as bad as it used to be. But I only put it like 3 of 10 or 2 of 10, or on Sony's, it's like, you know, 1 of 3. I don't mess around with like the motion flow or the clearness where it knocks down with the black frame insertion. That makes me dizzy. And if it's like on high, that'll just start flickering. And yeah, I don't like that at all. So that is that. All right, let me look at some of these comments. Is everybody being nice? I hope everyone's being nice here in the comments here. I see a couple. Let me get to this one here. Is the QN, thank you, first of all, Lucas, I appreciate it. Is the QN90A worth the extra money over the QN90A? Is there a different picture quality for a room 14 by 12? You think we recommend 75 or 85? That brings me up to a really good point. I did want to make a point to say, and I'll answer this question too. The size does matter when it comes to enjoying the TV. I had a 55-inch in my bedroom. And then now I have a 65. So I went from a 55 A8H, Sony A8H OLED to a 65 A90J OLED. And that has made a substantial difference, right? The Sony A8H is not quite as bright as the C10, but it does make me think that it's maybe more about the size upgrade of the TV that's giving me a better overall, you know, experience than it is just about upgrading to the A90J. And I still think the A90J is worth it. I'm just, well, that's worth it. $4,000. That's a tough question. Excuse me. But I think the size does make a difference. Now, you know, in my bedroom, our bedroom is like 6 feet away from the TV. And then it's a 6 foot or 7 foot long bed. It's like 12 or 14 feet. So a 55-inch was a little small. So in your case, I have a couple opinions on that, and I'd be interested to see what other people think. But I think the QN90A might be worth it finally. If the money's there and you can afford it, the size we'll talk to in a second. But the QN90A has, I think, 500 to 700 dimming zones, and I think the QN900A is maybe twice that, or over 1,000. But it's 8K. I don't know if it's worth getting the 8K, but I do think there's a quality difference. I am interested if they're both similar brightness and they have a lot more dimming zones per square inch on the 8K. I'd be interested to see them side by side and see if I enjoy the QN900A more, because the smaller dimming zones per square inch, I feel like is going to help with the brightness and making sure that there maybe are some better highlights. Whereas the QN90A, I felt like it didn't have great highlights because of that harsh dimming. In a bright room with bright content, they're probably both going to be great. So, you know, it's just a money thing. I don't think that 8K is absolutely necessary on a huge screen like that. It may be down the road with 8K content, but 8K content is tough to find. I think it's going to be, from the fact that there's not a lot of stuff being made in 8K, cameras for like this kind of stuff are not made in 8K very often. So I don't know. It's a very tough decision. I would say that I am interested in getting the QN900A more than I have been in the past to get a Samsung, Q900TS or whatever, or Q900R in the past. But again, it'll come down to the dirty screen effect on those. So, one of them could have a bunch of DSC in the background and one of them may not. Maybe that's the QN90A 4K versus the 8K. So you have to check that out. As far as the distance, 12 feet away, I mean, your situation, you're 12 feet away or 14 feet away. I think 75 or 85 is plenty big either way. That'll just be something that you'll have to deal with. I would say it depends on how much wall space you have, on what things are going to go under it. An 85-inch TV looks really dumb under like a 6-foot mantle, just so you know, or if you try to slap it up under a little like 60-inch entertainment center. So it depends on what you're going to have under it, how much wall space you have, and then how much screen size you need. There are some, guides online to see more about that here. Let's see. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, I just got thank you, Alton. I appreciate it. Hook 'em horns, man. All right. Is that the right thing? I don't know. Is that the right? I think that is. I think hook 'em horns is the right thing here. All right. Let's see Logan. I'm trying to get Logan's here, but it's not letting me. Is that further down? There you go. All right, Logan. I've seen C1 demos with the bump in SDR over the C10. Have you seen the same? Also, when could the C1 drop to $2,000? Appreciate that question. So let me go back to this. That's not it. All right, here it is. Do you see a bump in brightness? On the top left is the C1. On the top right is the C10. Does anyone see a bump in brightness that is significant? That would make you say, yes, I see a difference. For me, it was tough. I didn't see it in this slide, to be honest. It looks like the C10 looks a little brighter on the right. If you look at the umbrella, the white part on the left side of each screen, that white part of the umbrella looks brighter on the C10 than it does on the left on the C1. But I think it's it's really close. I don't know if it's worth it for the brightness upgrade, but I think it is an improvement on motion and upscaling. As far as if it's worth it overall, that's a tough question. But on the other hand, the price drop, I think this year it's going to be more competitive on pricing. It already is more competitive, but I think the C1 is going to come down in price. I think it should be under 2,000 fairly soon. I think it could be in the summer, maybe at Amazon Prime Day. I know that the C10 went down to like $1,850 for a 65-inch right before Black Friday, I believe, or $1,899, maybe $50 more if you were a Best Buy Elite member. But I think that because the G1 is so close in price, and because it's brighter, I think the G1 will sell more, but it's going to be very close. And if the C1 isn't selling as fast as they would like, because both that the C10 is good and it still sells, places like Costco still have the C10 and they'll have them until they run out. So if those aren't selling, they may have to drop the C1 price eventually if they have too much stock. I think it will go down lower and faster than the C10 of this last year would. So, the price of the TVs is coming down to build, and, they have another plant to make these. And, sometimes I feel like the quality control might be coming down a little bit too. I know some people have had some issues with the grid-like banding. I was able to run the pixel refresh a couple times on my C1, and the minimal grid-like banding went away. And now I'm up close to that screen and I don't see any grid-like banding any longer after I've had it now for a couple weeks. So thanks for the question. I hope that has helped you. Let's see. Any other questions here? I see the A90J versus the G1. I think that'll be an interesting comparison. I think, in my opinion, if I had to choose between an A90J or a G1, I think I would probably go for the Gallery series because, I think that the LG typically looks a little brighter if it's like apples to apples sort of thing. My 8H and my C10, the C10 was definitely brighter to me. And again, it's the size, it's a little bigger TV, 65 versus 55, but was a little disappointed in the 8H on its brightness when we're trying to watch something bright in HDR. It doesn't really knock your socks off. So I think, I don't know, it'd be tough for me not to go with the G1 if the prices are the same over taking the second best Sony OLED. That would be my thought. All right, so let's see. Let me go back to my slides and see if I had any other things to talk about. Oh yeah, OLED versus QLED real quick. So I think when people talk about OLED versus QLED, people talk about, the quality of the TV or the picture quality or, you know, sometimes it's the blooming, which is important because that's a part of what I'm about to talk about. But I think more importantly, it comes down to where you're watching the TV and kind of like the content you're watching. But most importantly, where are you watching it? Can you control the light? Will you be watching shows with your family at night? Are you going to be watching sports and stuff during the day? So if you're watching like you're watching like you know, Premier League soccer during the day in a bright room with a bunch of windows, it's pretty difficult to then choose like an LG C10 or something or a C1 and expect it to shine through that all those windows in your background. You're going to end up seeing yourself in the mirror, you know, in the mirror-like reflection most of the time. So in that instance, I could see someone getting a QLED. But if you're going to be watching it in a dark room, especially before this year, I would say it's almost a no-brainer that you'd want to get a, you know, an OLED. If you can stomach this whole talk about burn-in, again, which I've never had on any of my OLEDs, and a lot of my friends and a lot of people, a lot of creators have OLEDs that have never experienced burn-in either. So I would say that for the most part, I would go OLED because of the darkroom performance, because in a dark room, the brightness benefit of having a QLED is basically moot because it blinds you, and you have a lot of times using the ambient light detection to lower it a bit. I've had a QLED in my bedroom for years, and I always had to use that ambient light detection because when the lights were off, it was blinding bright in the dark, and that doesn't do any, it doesn't benefit anyone to have it that bright. It's like a Samsung terrace in your bedroom. So anyways, now that the QN90A has better darkroom performance, okay, maybe you can do QLED in a dark room. But then again, in my opinion, it seemed like it knocked down some of those specular highlights because the dimming is extremely aggressive. Let's see. I have a question from Lynn. I have an XBR 55X900F now. Would an A8H be a good step up to an OLED for less money than the A80 or the A90? Of course, it'll be a step up. You know, the thing is that you're not going to have a significant improvement in brightness, but you will notice if you're in dark room, you'll notice that infinite contrast. That's one thing. If you ever just go into like a Best Buy store, they have them set up. You can see like an A8H right next to an, you know, the X900H, which is similar TV. And you can see, in my opinion, the picture quality is a lot different because the A8H has that perfect black level, whereas like the blooming and the, you know, the FALD local dimming on the X900F or H or whatever just doesn't look quite as good. Of course, the price difference and buying a new TV, now that's something to consider. I would have to say, coming from that TV, going to an A90J would be a significant improvement, a massive improvement. But at twice the price of that A8H, I would say give the A8H a shot, see how you like it. And remember, with all these TVs, it's not something like, you know, you want to take TVs back, but take it home, enjoy it for a week, put it on a stand. If you don't like it, you can always take it back for another TV. You know, these companies sell thousands and thousands of TVs. And if you need to take one back because it doesn't satisfy you, that's the breaks of big box business, man. That's what it is. So I appreciate the comment, Lynn. I hope that helps. I'm sure one of those OLEDs will be good for you. If you have the money, get the A90J. It's pretty awesome. Or I would consider also the LG C10 or the G1, G10, all those different TVs. Sorry, I meant to say the LG C10 or the new LG G1 or C1. Lucas has another question. No windows in my room. Is this the same Lucas that already hooked it up? I think so. I appreciate it. I have no windows in my room. Would you recommend a 75-inch Q90A or a 65-inch A90J? I mostly watch SDR television and play video games. Well, this may make some people angry. I'm not sure. But if I had to choose between a 75-inch QN90A for SDR and video games, that might be the choice. Because one, Samsung typically has better gaming performance than Sony, which doesn't even have like the VRR working. It doesn't have any sort of game optimizer. Not that that's a huge deal. I don't really care about it. But what I'm saying is the A90J, the best benefit for the A90J, and I would imagine most people that have the A90J would say is that it's really, really good for the HDR. You can see in this slide behind your comment, Lucas, the HDR, I'm sorry, the SDR of the A90J at its peak. This is not in vivid mode, by the way. These are all ISF bright on the top, and then a custom mode that I put it in the bottom where it was as bright as I could get standard or any other mode without being in vivid. I didn't put any of these in vivid mode. You can get a little bit more punch out of the A90J in vivid mode, but for the most part, the SDR was similar. And if I go back to these slides, in SDR, you can look at any of these. There's definitely more shadow detail in the, actually, I'm not even on the right one. Sorry. I got to make sure I'm on the right thing here. There we go. Shadow detail is better. That's something I didn't really mention. The A90J definitely has better shadow detail than the C10 or the C1. So I don't think that the C1 is remarkably better than the C10, but I didn't think the C10 was that bad. There was some corrections, some firmware updates. I thought the C10 had decent, decent shadow detail. The C1 also has good shadow detail for the most part. It's just that you don't really notice what you don't know what you don't know until you then see it on a Sony Master Series OLED that can peak, above 1,000 nits, not an SDR, but, for HDR. So the question, so 10-inch larger QLED versus 10-inch smaller, OLED. And he's saying, in my room, I have no windows. So that makes it difficult because control the light. How close do you sit? I mean, I don't know how close you're sitting, Lucas, but man, that's a tough call, really. I think most people would be split on this, So I think for the most part, a Techno Dad saying, I don't know if this to this comment, but no Dolby Vision on the Samsung, but no VRR on the no VRR currently on the Sony should come. Both TVs should be pretty good. I think that it then comes down to the size and if you are okay with blooming or potential of getting some dirty screen effect on the Samsung, or if you're going to be sad that you only have a 65-inch A90J, which is $4,000, very expensive TV. And, if you're not going to be immersed in that picture quite as much as you would be on the other one. So I appreciate the comment. And Robert, lots of windows. You mentioned watching soccer on the Q90A. I heard there are issues with backlight keeping up as camera pans across the pitch. Yeah, I think a lot of people, even just Caleb, is it, I believe, from Digital Trends said today, I watched his review on that, where he liked this TV. He did notice on the downside that it does have it is a bit lagged on keeping up the backlight, keeping up with the picture. In his review, he said that he thought it would not be seen in content. So this is a question where you're saying it can, maybe it can be seen in content. Now, if you're watching soccer, the only thing I'd have to say is the dirty screen effect. If you have that, it's something that if you see it, it's frustrating. Soccer pitches aren't, they're not white, so that's good. It's not like hockey, so it's green. That shouldn't be as bad. But if you get a clean screen with a lot of windows, you almost have to. If you're going to watch during the day, let me explain this real quick. The Samsung TVs have a really, really good anti-reflective coating, and they're super bright, right? So if you're watching bright content and you have an anti-reflective coating that is superior, then you have it's almost 4 times better than watching an OLED in a bright room that doesn't have as good of anti-reflective coating. Now, OLEDs typically it's still a fairly good anti-reflective coating. What I'm saying is it's very mirror-like. And if you try to add that to Windows, what happens is anytime it's even like kind of dark or even in a bright scene on your TV, unless you have A90J or maybe the G1 that's it's more bright. If you have some of these older OLEDs, you can see the windows in your reflection all the time, and it can be frustrating. Or if you have a light behind you, you can see that light all the time. Even at night, I have to turn the lights off in our living room with our C10 because it's annoying, and nobody wants to have that light in the background. So if you're watching sports, if you're in a bright room with windows, which I've been many times, and I've installed both kinds of these TVs, and then I've watched content, and I've been like, yeah, it's a good thing you have a QLED, because if you had an OLED and that window back there would be like on your screen. So I would say that, yeah, it's probably a good choice. Hopefully they'll improve the dimming algorithm maybe they'll improve the speed at which that backlight keeps up. I have no idea, absolutely no idea if they have the abilities to do those kind of things in a software update. Can they fix that sort of thing? You know, go ask Vincent Tio or maybe FOMO. So I appreciate that. All right. Well, I can hear the kids got home. I'm sure the plumber is going to be showing up soon. Are there any other questions before I take off here? Let me double check on this. I appreciate everyone stopping in, checking in. Let me see if I had any other questions. I think we got through all the different stuff here. So right now, buy or wait. Is it the C10 or the C1? What are people going to buy if they're buying a LG OLED? I'd like to know. Definitely leave a comment. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. I appreciate it. And have a good day, everybody.